Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. The first story is called Employee Parking. To give a little backstory, I work at a medical facility, and the company is a very large employer in the immediate area. My wife and I both work for this company, albeit at separate locations. I work at the main facility, which is a significantly large campus in the next town over. This is a busy place, it's a large hospital, and I work nights. Night shift and swing shift, or pretty much anyone starting at or after 4 is allowed to park pretty much anywhere. This is because most of our facilities are shut down and non-accessible to patients or visitors. The parking lot most of my co-workers and myself park in is actually next to a series of offices that were recently relocated, so it's even more empty and useless space than usual, especially at night. Out of nowhere, all the employers parking in this area are getting tickets from the company. It's patient parking, and employees must park in employee-designated areas. Those are, of course, gravel pits that are about a 30-minute walk from the main facility, just on a different side of the campus. Because the weather has been bad, and because I received a compliance warning ticket, I emailed my department manager and said I would be happy to follow the parking policy. So tonight, I drive my happy little self to work, and I park a good 20 minutes from the main entrance. Then I called our security team. You see, our facility has in place a policy that at any time, literally any of the 24 hours in the day, any patient, visitor, or staff member may call the security office and ask for the courtesy shuttle to pick them up and escort them to any of the facilities on campus. So I did, and I let them know where I was parked and told them I would be waiting for my escort to the main entrance. They came, after warning me that I shouldn't rely on them. And I let them know that if it was an issue, they were welcome to provide to me, in writing, a reason why, so I would be able to in turn provide that to my supervisor. And this morning, at the end of my shift, I called and asked for someone to meet me at the main entrance so I could be escorted back to my vehicle. When I was dropped off at my car this morning, I asked if the security officer would be back tonight. I told him I would be back and would be calling again, if he wanted or needed to pass that on. Again, I was told that security is busy and has other concerns. I told him I would continue to park in the employee parking spaces, but given the unsafe weather conditions, I would be relying on security to escort me to and from the building, per our company's policy and procedures. I reminded him that any accident on company property whilst I was either on my way to or out the door from work is still covered, and let him know I would see him tonight. I'm pretty sure security does have much larger concerns, but until the policy is actually set in ink that nights or evenings are exempt from the employee parking rules, I plan on continuing to be a compliant little jerk. The next story is called The Master. A few years ago, I was in the process of getting my master's degree. Our group for that particular degree was fairly small, about a dozen of us when we started, and a few dropped out along the way. So the lectures and seminars were tiny and we all got to know each other well. It wasn't uncommon for classes to continue for several hours down in the pub. All in all, a pretty great way to learn. The leader of the program, who also taught one of the units, was awesome. He just wanted to get on with teaching his subject his way. The higher-ups were in the process of trying to change how everything worked, basically making it much tougher on the students and a lot more bureaucratic. One thing they changed was extensions for assignments. The way it used to work was that you had a deadline, but if you needed an extension, the lecturer for that unit could grant one at their own discretion. The new process meant that if you needed an extension, you'd have to apply to the extensions board. And you wouldn't know if you'd had it approved or not until well past the deadline. You basically had to gamble. If you applied for the extension and handed in past the deadline, and your extension wasn't granted at all or wasn't granted for enough time, you'd get a failing mark for being late. It was super stressful, especially for those of us with ongoing reasons for needing them. This angered the program leader a lot. As far as he was concerned, it's his course, he knows us all well enough to see bad excuses. His say should be good enough to grant an extension. He carried on handing them out anyway while they were in the process of changing the system, getting into a lot of trouble in the process. But once it was fully changed, his power to grant them was gone. But for us was only one major assignment left at this point, the thesis. Most of our class ended up needing extensions for it because of legit reasons. We were all preparing to take the gamble, collect as much evidence as possible, and submit all the ridiculous paperwork in the hope that our entire degree wouldn't be taken away from us thanks to a board of pencil pushers who didn't even know us. A couple of days before the deadline, the course leader gets in touch to gleefully inform us that the ones in charge took away his extension powers, but not his powers to change the actual deadline dates. He figured the best thing to do was to move the deadline 6 months into the future, giving us all more than enough time to not only finish our work but keep improving on it, as an extra special to the people stressing out his students and messing with his course. We all graduated, and they couldn't do much about it because he was working perfectly within the rules. The third story is called Change the Amount. Last night I was finishing up my draft for a 10-page essay that's due for my finals and it's 2 in the morning and I'm hungry. So I decide to go get food somewhere. The place I go to has some bar seats and there's 3 other people there in a group. I sit down and get 2 orders of fries and talk to my waitress for probably 15 minutes and she's an absolute sweetheart. We were talking about college and all the stress, and the entire time those 3 boys were cutting in, not trying to be rude but just repeating and agreeing with our points. I guess this made them feel justified with telling me my math was wrong later. This whole time I'm eating my fries and they're delicious for 2 in the morning food. When I'm done, I get my bill and my total is $6.34. I put down $10 because that's the smallest bill I've got and I liked her, so I tell her to keep the change. I'm getting up to leave and one of the boys stops me and says, "You gave her too much, she should have gotten like 60 cents. And I just stopped for like 10 seconds trying to process what just happened before replying, "That's not even 10% and I liked her, so I gave her more." "What's it to you?" He shrugs at me and says, "I just thought you'd want to know." His friends look awkward but not embarrassed or surprised, and I'm just trying to figure out what I did to lead him to think I wanted his advice. While I'm being silent, he continues, "It's just when you do that, then they get expectant and treat us like crap when we give them the right amount. This is wrong because the standards where I am are 15% and he wanted me to give 9%. It's 2 and I'm not having this. I had a good time with a really nice waitress and good fries and I'm exhausted. I work in retail and I am used to being yelled at and berated by customers over coupons. I just think to myself, this is your chance to finally get it over on one of these jerks." I look this boy in the face and as I'm digging through my purse, I tell him, "You're right. I should change my tip." He nods at me and I pull out the only other cash I have on hand, which is a $20 note. I marched right over to the waitress and hand it to her, and giving him my best customer service smile voice, thank the customer for the idea, and leave. The next story is called Desktop Cleanup Required. This happened yesterday. I work as an IT support technician in the National Health Service. I get a call from a known troublemaker, who is complaining that the new computers we delivered and installed have too much on them and need to be cleared out. I called her to clarify and she said, "Just get up here please and sort it. It's already been too long, my staff can't work with these computers so full of rubbish." So I went up to their office and had a look. All our programs are distributed in a virtual machine environment, which is unable to be closed by the end user, because they won't be able to call that process again because they don't have the access, for very good reasons. I explained this to the troublemaker, who almost accused me of lying to her and trying to explain the problem away. Meanwhile, 4 perfectly capable staff are standing around doing nothing because the computers are broken. I told her if I removed that virtual machine suite, they wouldn't be able to access anything at all and would have to get the machines reworked with a different, more heavily restricted version of the operating system, but without the suite. She told me to get on with it then, so I did. 4 machines got formatted and new images with our operating system, which is for use in training young people and computer illiterate people. Almost everything is locked down, including Internet Explorer, Chrome and Firefox. The firewall adds a different rule set to these machines, which restricts them to a very, very small list of approved sites for young kids, etc. Also, you cannot delete, install, modify or move any shortcuts or files on the desktop or access any shared drives that they will need to access to do their jobs. It took 3 hours to do every machine, and I logged every conversation we had in the service desk call, then closed it as resolved, walked out and said the computers were ready to use and they could log on with the same login as before. 10 minutes later, I get the same troublemaker on the phone, telling me that I have sabotaged her entire department and that she is going to report me. I said, "If you feel the need to report me, that's fair enough. I have attached the full service desk report to the closed call, which will be sequestered as evidence in the formal complaint process, which should help get to the bottom of where to assign the blame. Or if you like, I can apply new images to those machines in an hour and show your staff how to use it, but I don't want to tread on your toes. You're not coming anywhere near our department again." She hung up. Sure enough, a little while later, our team lead gets a snotty email and official request for review for me. He laughs and says to me, "This should be fun, it's a slow day." So this morning we had a meeting with the aggrieved and my team lead. He explained I did nothing wrong and exactly as requested and that I had fully explained the consequences. She flew into a rage and tried to blame me for sabotaging her office and was eventually asked to leave the meeting. The review was cancelled and she was told by the director of IT that her access to the review system was suspended until she completes a refresher course on best use and practice. The next story is called, You Want Our Best Salesman? Years ago, I used to work in a store for a major telephone company. I loved the diversity in my workplace, from the types of people I would encounter to the different challenges that would arise. Every day was an adventure. However, this particular scenario happened at least once a week, sometimes more. Now, we all know how frustrating it can be to call outsourced call centers. Some people though take their frustrations as a personal affront and are happy to blame an entire culture as a whole for their grievances. At the time, I would often work as an effective floor manager, which essentially meant meeting and greeting customers, taking their names and finding out why they were in the store to ensure they could be served by the most appropriate person. This meant I was in front of the firing line when these customers would go on their racial rants. Being that I am a white woman in her early 20s, these customers assumed I would sympathize with their point of view. How wrong they were. Welcome, how can we help you today? Those stupid Indian call centers have gone and messed up my account. I can't understand a word any of them say. This is an Australian company and you lot have those working for you. It's ridiculous. I want your best salesman to fix this. Now. Absolutely, sir. While I am a Caucasian woman and most of my colleagues were also Caucasian, our two best salesmen happened to be of ethnic origin. One from Sri Lanka and another whose parents were from New Delhi. I think you can see where my malicious compliance is going. They were both lovely men with a lot of company experience and were, technically, our best salesmen. Sir, this is our most experienced employee. I present my colleague from Sri Lanka. He is more than happy to have a look at your account for you today. The people would often stammer for a moment before begrudgingly following my colleague to their workstation, quickly tucking their racism back in. But on a few occasions, they didn't. The following would happen. This isn't acceptable. I want to speak to an Australian. Of course, sir. My apologies. From there I would go and find the colleague from New Delhi and say to him, we have another one. Enjoy. Got it. He would then proceed to lay on the most bogan Australian accent he could and introduce himself to the customer. It was glorious. 9 times out of 10, he would have them sorted and on their way with little hassle. The 10% that held a grudge? Well, I always made sure to loudly wish them a good day with a cheery smile on my face as they left. The last story is called, We Will Take Your Allergy Super Seriously. I manage a busy restaurant in central London. We are normally fully booked weeks in advance, even for Mondays. This was a Thursday and we were jam-packed. I was walking around, making sure everyone was having a good time and one of my waiters, a super nice and competent guy, comes and asks me to take one of his tables. I have a policy that if anyone is giving my team a hard time, I'll take the table so they can stay at top of their game. He gives me a quick heads up that the issue is a woman didn't want to wait longer for her food despite having a severe nut allergy and she was calling him stupid and saying stuff like, maybe McDonald's would be a better fit for you. I go over and talk to the lady. She is part of a group of 12 and right away she's already in my bad books. Are you someone with a brain? I look at her and laugh awkwardly and tell her, some people would argue but I think so. My colleague tells me there is an issue with your order? Yes, I have a severe nut allergy and he was saying things may contain traces and would take slightly longer, and asking dumb stuff like are traces okay? I try to explain to her as nicely as I could. He asked about traces to know if we can use the food that is already prepared. For a severe allergy we can't use any of the ingredients that were prepared as there could be cross-contamination. So what we would have to do is clean down a separate area and prepare everything from scratch. But of course, we can time everything to come out at once so you can all enjoy your food together. And as for the may contain trace, that's just because we don't make all our sauces ourselves and some items are prepared in a central kitchen where we can't control. That being said, we have never had a problem with an allergy. She looks at me as though I just slapped a baby in front of her and says, so you are stupid too. Is it so hard dealing with an allergy? Our company is spending a lot of money here and we booked 6 weeks ago. A restaurant like this shouldn't be so stressful. Can you just make me my food without nuts? And if I have a reaction, I'll sue. That's when I thought she's right. So I told her, you are right, I'm sorry, we can't serve you. The sauces can't be made from scratch and because you are unwilling to accept a risk that's comparable to the risk you would take when buying anything packaged anywhere that says, may contain nuts, just to cover themselves legally, I'm going to have to say we cannot safely serve you. To this day, when I think about her face, I smile. She was in shock. She immediately asked to speak to my manager but was out of luck. I told her I was the general manager. Her friends didn't seem to care. I think it was a work thing because none of them reacted. But I was feeling petty since she insulted my team member and then me. So I addressed the whole table and said, I'm really sorry about this and I wish we had known in advance so we could have prepared for such a severe allergy. I really don't want this sour your evening, so I would like to offer everyone a cocktail on us to apologize. They were all really happy with this gesture. I take all the drink orders and before the allergy lady orders her cocktail I tell her, by the way, we have almond syrup and nuts in the bar. So I would only feel comfortable giving you something closed like a bottle of beer or a glass of wine. It cost me over £250 to give away the round of drinks, but felt so good to give her a bit of karma. The next day, I had a complaint on my emails and a bad review of TripAdvisor. Needless to say, I'd do it all again. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.